another episode of My Car Story. Today I'm here with Herb Lederer. Herb, good to see you.
Good to see you, Lou.
And we're in for a special treat. We're going to be talking about Herb's Indianapolis 1950s on-the-track race car. So before we get going too far, just so that people have kind of a little feel of where we're going with this, we're in Illinois, and I'm here with Herb, and Herb was sharing with me after college, what was your very first car?
My very first car?
Yeah.
My everyday car?
Your everyday
or
car.
My old car?
Your everyday first car.
Well, my everyday car was a 58 Volkswagen Beetle, and it served us well.
Yeah,
for a long time.
And that's kind of how it all begins. I mean, so it tells people that.
Well, no, it begins before that. My very first car that I owned was a 48 Chevrolet, and it was a low mileage car, one owner car. I lived in Burlington, Wisconsin, which is 35 miles from Milwaukee. And that car's history was that it had made one trip to Milwaukee, and the rest of the time it was local. And that was my very first car.
Yeah.
The next car was a 53 Ford mainline six-cylinder coupe.
Yeah.
And then the Volkswagen Beetle came in after that.
And then you and your wife, Dory, talked, and you said, as long as we can keep, we're never going to have not food on the table, but we're going to start to, you said you got sick.
Right.
You're at work. Tell a little bit about that.
Well, I was working and being early on in the work, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was all work, 60 to 80 hours a week. I got sick. I missed a month of work, and while I was sitting home recovering and recuperating, we talked about the fact that we really didn't have a hobby. We were just totally devoted to work and taking care of the house and the kids, and suggested that maybe we should get a boat or an old car.
Sure.
And a boat was pretty much out of the question because we had small children, dog, cat, and a relatively short boating season in Illinois. So we decided to get an old car, and
yes,
from there, like Topsy, it just growed.
What was the first old car?
First car was a 1931 Ford Model A, a deluxe two-door sedan, and it was a wonderful car. It had 30,000 miles. This was a 30-year-old car with 30,000 miles. It became the standard for settling arguments about what was right and what was wrong on the Model A, because it had never been taken apart.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very dependable car. Wonderful family car.
And so from there, people started to, you just continued to get different cars, some exciting cars. You had an Alpha you were sharing with me. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, I had two Alphas. I had a short chassis, 8C 2300, and I had a long chassis, 8C 2300. And I had them both at the same time, and then decided that there was another car that came along that I thought I should have, so I sold one of the Alphas. I sold the short chassis car, kept the long chassis because I could fit kids in the back seat. And that car we had for about 30 years before it got sold. So there were always cars out there. When you have cars, you either run out of space, or you run out of money, or you run out of interest. And if you fall in love with another car, you get divorced from one and just keep moving on.
So now we're going to kind of fast forward to where we're at. So what was you finally decided, I'm going to buy a real race car. What was your first race car?
My first real race car was a 1946 Indianapolis car. It was a rail frame car. It had been built in 41, stored for the war years, went to Indy in 46 and 48, never qualified.
Okay.
And
what was that car's name?
That was the Jewel Special.
The Jewel Special.
And that was Jewel with two L's.
Okay.
Lawrence Jewel was from the Detroit area. He was a crankshaft grinder.
Okay.
And ran some cars. The car had a history at Indy, but not qualified.
Yeah.
And then it ran the Champ Car series, and that was on the mile tracks. They were dirt tracks at that time. And then the car got passed around like all old cars do. Went through Chuck Davis's hands. He restored the car. Then it had 2 other owners before I got the car. And the car came to Bob McKee's shop and was mechanically restored. The engine was done by Steve Truchan down in Gary, Indiana. And his name will come up later when we talk about the car I have now, because he's the one that found the car for me. I ran the car. They had parade laps and demonstrations down at Indy, which were great fun. And then the Harry Miller Club has an event up at Milwaukee Mile.
Okay.
And that's in July every year. And I ran the car up there. And that was where you could pretty much run the car to your comfort level.
Okay.
And so I ran that car for a number of years there. I owned the car for 14 years. I sold it in 2014. It was a fairly tight cockpit, and you sat very upright in that car.
Okay.
And it came to a point where I couldn't lift my leg high enough to get it all the way off the clutch.
Okay.
So I decided I probably should sell the car.
So now you sell that one.
I sold that one.
The Jewel Special.
The Jewel Special was gone, and I was having
what are we seeing here
having
today?
seller's remorse. And all of my friends went to Indy in May for the parade laps and such.
And here's Herb without his Indy car.
I didn't go to Indy, and I was feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so I was talking to people and saying, you know, if I could find a car that had a cockpit big enough for me, then I think I could be interested. And probably 4 to 6 weeks later, I got a call from Steve Truchan.
Okay.
And he told me that the Dayton steel wheel car was available. Was I
Dayton
interested?
Steel Wheel.
Dayton Steel Wheel.
So
It's known as the Dayton Steel Wheel Special.
The Dayton Steel Wheel Special.
Right.
So what year is the Dayton Steel Wheel Special?
The car first went to Indy in '51.
Okay.
Qualified with Andy Linden driving.
So this is a real Indy race car.
This
is
is
on
an Indy
the track.
race car. It was on the track, and it was there. And please don't ask me how it finished, because I can't remember. I've got it all written down.
Someone
and I
will
can
write
look
that
it
in
up.
our YouTube blog or something. Right.
The car next ran at Indy in '54.
Yeah.
And Andy Linden drove the car in that race.
So what happened to 52 and 53?
52 and 53, they couldn't get it qualified. They couldn't get it fast enough.
And qualification is by speed.
That's right.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
If you go fast enough, you can You can run with the big dogs.
Yeah, you don't run fast enough, it waits for another year.
That's right.
So who made it faster from 51 to 54?
Probably the driver.
Okay.
Probably the mechanic.
Continue
it was
to
running
work on it.
basically the same running gear. It ran with a 270-inch Offie engine.
Yeah. Tell me what an
And,
Offie means.
It's Offenhauser.
Okay.
It's double overhead cam, 270-inch displacement.
And this was the Indy engine at that
This
time?
was the engine.
At that
and
time.
remained the engine for a number of years.
Yes.
So, you know, what makes them faster? Who knows?
Yeah,
Because they didn't change the bodywork very much.
Right.
If at all. And you know, it's pretty much the driver.
Excellent.
The driver, track conditions, but everybody has the same track conditions.
Yep.
So that part is pretty much equal.
Okay.
And then in '55, the car had been sold from the original owner, and it ran in '51 and '54 as the Brown Motor Company Special. In '55, it was the Dayton Steel Wheel Special.
Okay.
And Elmer George was the driver, did his rookie test in the car, and the car had independent front suspension at that time.
Okay.
And the suspension collapsed while he was either practicing or trying to qualify.
Okay.
And so the car never made it in '55. In '56, the car came back. It had been changed. It had started life with an aluminum frame. When it came back in '56, it had a tube frame, which it has now.
Okay.
And the driver was Jim McWithy.
Okay.
And he did his rookie test in the car, but also didn't qualify.
Okay.
He did run the car at Milwaukee in '56, didn't finish the race, and so far the only history I have takes me, racing history, takes me to Milwaukee in '56.
Gotcha.
I don't have anything after that. I'm working on that.
Well, we should go and take a look at your car.
All right, we can do that.
Sounds great.
It's a work in progress.
Yes.
There it is, Lou.
There we go.
In all its glory.
This is what we're talking about.
Right.
A real live 50s Indy car. I'm just going to give it a hug. All right, I'm good. I'm good, being a car guy. So my first thought is beautiful color, number 77, little Sunoco on the hood. Why the tires with the tread like that?
Those were Indy tires. They were made just for running at Indy.
Okay.
And they only turned left.
So that's where you need the tread.
This was the design that worked for them.
All right.
Let me tell you a little about the
Sure.
car. It's a work in progress. It's being restored. It was a complete car. We had taken it completely apart, and we're now putting it back together. So there are some parts missing and things like that, and I'll tell you about them. The grille is missing. It's out being chrome plated.
Okay.
The brake handle is out being chrome plated.
But we're about 95% complete.
Yes, right. We're
Right.
down.
So
we're
people
down
are
to,
seeing the real deal.
Yeah, we're down to the details, and yes, this is the real deal.
You've got the shaft you were talking about here that you started with.
Right. The starter is a remote starter, and basically it was an aircraft starter.
Okay.
Because they had to have a lot of torque to turn the engine over.
Yeah.
If these engines are running on alcohol, they're running 15 to 1 or more compression ratio. This engine is running on gasoline. I chose to not run it on alcohol because alcohol is a maintenance problem.
Okay.
Gasoline is another problem, but since we're not racing, then we can run it on gasoline and be very happy with that.
Why is there
That's the air intake.
The air intake.
The 2 carburetors are here.
Okay.
So it brings fresh air in and puts to the carburetors.
Okay.
Brings in cool air to the carburetors, and you know, some people would call it a cold air box, but it's not a box; it's a tube.
Okay.
And
we can pull the engine. We can pull the hood.
We can.
Okay.
The hood was just lettered this last week, and I didn't reattach it. So all I can do is just lift it right off, and there it is. It's the four-cylinder Offenhauser engine, double overhead cam.
Wow.
Magneto ignition, and if you look down in here, you'll see two.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Flynn carburetors.
There's our carburetors.
Right. The Flynn was very similar to the Riley carburetor, and except that it was turned 90 degrees, and that's it. I had never experienced and never even heard about Flynn carburetors until we got this car.
Got it. What's this? What's the red box?
That's the Magneto.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's the entire ignition system.
And we've got the water running through here.
Yes.
It's actually, the engine itself is beautiful. I mean, very highly polished. I mean, spectacular.
Well, they are beautiful.
Yeah, they can see the camshaft going in, and the spark plug connects.
Right. When you go into Bob's office after a while, you'll see a
Bob McKee. Okay.
You'll see a display engine there, which is an Offenhauser engine, but it's a 110-inch engine, and was used in midget race cars.
We should give a quick shout out, Bob McKee. We're at McKee Engineering. That's where you're keeping and working on your car.
That's right.
We've got the great Offenhauser engine, little plaque there.
Yep.
Fantastic. And the suspension, I mean, is beautiful with the chroming. And let's take a look back in here.
Well, back here, it's pretty much the main workstation, so to speak. There's an air pump for putting air pressure into the fuel system to deliver fuel to the carburetors. 3-speed transmission, and then the fuel supply is here with a fuel shutoff next to the driver, so you could turn it off if you had to. You'll notice there are only 2 pedals. There's a accelerator,
okay,
and a clutch.
this here,
Right, and the brake, and this is a temporary brake handle, but the brake is outboard, mainly because there's not a whole lot of room in that cockpit once you get yourself in there, and it just works out that way. When I got the car, it had a hand clutch, and the brake was inboard. And if you can imagine driving this car with one hand working the clutch, the other hand shifting.
oh boy.
And then who's going to steer? Because you've run out of hands.
And this isn't the original steering wheel that's getting worked on.
That is the original steering
Oh,
wheel.
is it?
There's a new one that's in transit right now. It should be here today or tomorrow.
So I'm grabbing onto the real 50s. This is the McCoy.
That's the real McCoy.
All right, this is great.
Right.
And you're shifting between your legs.
Right.
And
unfortunately,
what's
with
the
these
vibration
cars,
like in this?
vibration is it's
Like a go-kart?
It's the 4-cylinder shake.
Okay.
There's a unique vibration that comes with a 4-cylinder engine, and this one has it.
Okay. So
Plus it has a very loud voice.
with the exhaust.
Right.
There's no speedometer. It's just all tack and making sure that you don't over rev.
It's,
Got it.
Miles per hour doesn't mean a thing, but RPM is everything.
Okay.
That and oil pressure and water temperature.
And this is our gas tank here.
That's it.
How do you open that up?
Well, it's got a big mouth. And you just
So this is quick induction fuel. This is lift up and drain.
Right.
Got it.
They were dumping big cans in.
Get in, get out.
And that's it.
Got it.
So that's.
Just looking at this from the 50s reminds me of the current Chrysler. Well, I say current, but back in the 60s when they would have this on the Charger, and you'd see these now on Dodge Vipers and things like that. That mechanical gas cap feel. So
that's very similar to what I had on some English sports cars that I had.
Yeah. Let's go around to the back
release.
with the big 77 tail on the back, and
it's
beautiful.
It's a big tail because it covers a big fuel tank. That fuel tank extends from here back to here. Just fills this entire tail. It's probably originally was a 70 or 75 gallon tank. It's been modified, and we're now down to maybe 15 or 20 gallons.
Beautifully aerodynamic.
Well,
and let's take a look at
for the day.
The exhaust.
Exhaust is a 3.5-inch pipe. Comes out of 4-header, 4-tube
3.5-inch pipe.
Right, and there is no restriction in that pipe.
And you take this car yourself out and put it on the track occasionally.
I hope to. I haven't driven the car yet.
Not yet. Okay, so we'll be here for that. But clearly the bolt-on for the exhaust. And have you started it yet?
I have not.
Okay.
No,
all right.
It's ready to go. All we have to do is put fuel in, but the starter is not here.
Okay.
It's being worked on, put together, and built up.
I'll come back again for the start.
All right, you're welcome to come.
That would be
Bring
great.
your earplugs.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. We'll let people hear that at another time. But today we're just going to enjoy what we've got here today.
All of the body panels are held on with these Zeus fasteners.
Okay.
So that if you're working on the car, you can take all the panels off and you're left with nothing but frame and running gear.
Got it. And the frame right now you said is a tube.
The frame is a tube. You can just see it in here.
I can.
And on the other side you could see it.
Yep, you can see it on the side there.
And the front axle is a solid axle.
And these are the underside panels too.
Those are the belly pans.
Yeah, those are the belly pans. So it's smooth on the bottom. So it's just one big aerodynamic bullet running down the track.
Well, that's the theory.
Sounds great. Well, Herb, thanks for letting us take a look at your awesome car. I love this section in here too, where the exhaust is coming out and you can see down in there. Thanks so much for being on My Car Story.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.